Hello, so welcome back to the second part of the topic, which is novice teacher and school management. So in this presentation, as you can see in the table of content, we will talk about the issues and challenges that novice teachers faces and some of the school management issues. So we will start with the first topic, which is novice teachers, presented by Achu and Azrul. Let's go!
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hi everyone. So this is the first part for our presentation. The topic is novice teacher issues and challenges. For the first part of this presentation, the presenters will be me, Azrul Afi Azmi, and my friend Nurul Amira binti Ahmad Nazri. But before we proceed with the presentation, friendly notice. Please listen to each audio elaborations. Why? Because some Google Forms answer might not be written in the slide but explained in the audio. Good luck! Hello everyone, Azrul speaking. So first, let's get to know who is novice teacher. Novice teachers are in their first year of teaching with little or no prior teaching experience. So that's basically referring to us as a Part 7 students because we have like less than a year before our graduation, and then we are going to be a teacher, inshallah. We are going to serve as a teacher in a school. So that's the phase of a novice teacher, the first year teacher, the new teacher. Is that clear? So let's move on next. Issues and challenges among novice teacher. As you can see on the slide, these are the past researches about the issues and challenges. So let's go to the first one. Despite rigorous efforts taken by the government to address many issues of novice teachers, there are still many problems faced by novice teachers in school. So what are the problems? Move on next. According to FRI 2007, beginning teachers say that their pre-service education did not much help for their real experiences in the classroom setting. The last one, novice teachers are complaining about the lack of support by their colleagues and superiors. It has been identified on a study that novice teachers find the support they get on their first year as poor. Hover and Yeager 2004. So as you can see, or maybe you notice what on the slide already mentioned a bit of the problems and the issues. So what are the issues, the details? Let's get to the next presenter on the next slide. Let's go.
Hello everyone, my name is Nurul Amira binti Ahmad Nazri. So I will be presenting about the first part of the presentation, which is the novice teacher issues and challenges. There will be 4 subtopics in this point. So the first one is management, second is relational, third is professional, and the last one will be social status and identity. I will be talking about the first 2 subtopics, and the third and fourth will be presented by Azrul Afiq. Okay, let's see what we have for the first slide. Right, so under management, the first point is classroom management. There is a survey done by Melnick and Meister 2008. They said that novice teachers with 3 or fewer years of experience in teaching complain more about classroom management as compared to the experienced teachers. Right, so that is interesting. Therefore, I would like to conclude that classroom management is one of the biggest issue that received the highest complaint from the novice teachers. So what is classroom management? Basically is the ways to manage classroom, and different teachers will have different ways to manage their classroom, but the goals are the same, normally the same. So there are 3 main goals. The first one is to establish orderly environment for the students to develop meaningful learning. Number 2, to enhance students' social and emotional growth. And number 3, to efficiently convey the knowledge to the students. So normally, novice teachers, we are bound to reach the goal of the number 3 because that is what we know from teachers' profession, to convey the knowledge and to teach the students, right? So these are some examples of the classroom management issue. Number 1 is arranging routines and procedures for students during classroom activity. Number 2, disciplinary problems and their consequences. Number 3, teaching and learning process, timing and pacing. For number 1, I believe that we have encountered multiple times of this. We have been drilled into thinking that we have lesson plan and we have to follow directly. We have to follow 100% to the lesson plan. However, we need to understand that plan doesn't always work 100%. There would be some things that unexpectedly happen, especially when we are talking about in real life students in school. We don't know what will happen, so we must be prepared to have plan B and improvise our lesson plan if there's a need to. And for the disciplinary problems, there's a trick actually to cater to this problem, which is to get to know the student's background in order to resolve the disciplinary issues. However, novice teachers, we are not applicable to settle these kind of problems, because normally novice teachers will tell the head of disciplinary teachers or the headmaster, and sometimes they will directly go to the counselor to solve disciplinary issues, because novice teachers, we are still lack of experience. Therefore, our solutions might not be helpful to the school and the students. And lastly, the teaching and learning, timing and pacing. As we know, students, they have multiple learning styles, learning abilities, and of course you will receive mixed levels of students in one class. There will be beginners, intermediate and advanced students in a classroom setting. So it is not easy to cater to each and everyone's abilities. Therefore, novice teachers, because they tend to put high expectation on themselves, so when the students somehow fail to reach their expectations, so it will become like a toll and it become heavy to the teachers, right? What we need to know is that classroom management skills are not to be learned in 24 hours. So there are some teachers who take years to master these skills. So what we can do is that to continue learning and to continue collecting experiences and never give up. Okay, proceed to the next slide. So the next point is efficacy. What is efficacy? Basically, in online British dictionary, efficacy is the ability to produce a desired effect under ideal testing conditions. That is a little different from the teacher's efficacy, because teacher's efficacy is the judgment of his or her capabilities to bring about desired outcomes of the students' engagement and learning, even among those students who may be difficult or unmotivated. Therefore, what I can say about efficacy, it is actually the teacher's ability to bring a desired outcome from the students. And because novice teachers lack of experience, they have no problems to bring the desired outcome intended for themselves, but to bring a good outcome from a third party, from another person, is difficult. So there are some examples that the teacher can be effective in bringing their own desired outcome. For example, novice teachers, they are good in disciplinary actions, because normally novice teachers, they will come early to school, they will hand in their lesson plan on time, and they have no problem to carry out appropriate image of being a teacher, because they are new, so their motivation in being a teacher is still high. However, the real problems come in when the teachers is unable to face the challenges when it comes to the student, because As I said before, it is very hard to bring the outcome of another person. Therefore, the students might have problems in sorting out their lives because they are still teenagers, and some of them are forced to go to school when they don't want to. So it is hard for the teachers to bring a good result from these kind of students. So there is a study in 2009. It said that teaching experience is a major contributing factor to teachers' efficacy as compared to the types of training received by the teachers. This actually support the idea of experience is the best teacher, because the more experience you have, it means that you have more solution to help the students to be better in their learning styles or their motivation as well, you know. And of course, there is another study conducted in Sarawak. It is said that novice teachers pay less attention to set induction and lesson summary in their teaching. Other than that, they give less motivation to the students as compared to the experienced teachers. Well, for this point, I think we have learned this somehow through like the attention span of the student. If the teacher set induction is interesting, so the students tend to pay attention to their class, and if not, then the teacher have to re-highlight the main points during the lesson summary. Well, this actually help the teachers and the students to actually bring a good motivation or results towards the students' learning, because when the set, for example, when the set induction is interesting, therefore the students' motivation somehow becomes high to learn during that particular class. And even if they do not pay attention during the class, they somehow will get the gist of the whole lesson when the teacher highlighted the lesson summary. Therefore, it is very important for novice teachers to take note about this, okay? And then about the motivation, because different students will have different types of motivation. So this one is the teacher's ability to bring out their motivations for learning. So like maybe teachers can give candy or rewards, but the most important thing is to teach the students about intrinsic motivation. Okay? Okay, moving on. Competency. So what is competency? According to the online British dictionary, competency means the ability to perform on a task. And what is the difference between general competency and a teacher's competency? So a teacher's competency is the teacher's ability to finish a task successfully. There is a very thin line between finishing a task and finishing it successfully, because even if you do finish the task, it doesn't mean that you 100% success. But when we talk about competence, it means that you finish the task successfully, you produce a good work. It sounds simple, right? But why is it so hard for novice teachers? Okay, let's see. Novice teachers, we have good knowledge, we have the qualification to teach, but there is a very thin line as well of having the knowledge and knowing how to convey the knowledge to the students. The right way of conveying the knowledge to the students is very hard to achieve. Especially when we are talking about novice teachers, we lack of experience and we still don't know what is the students' abilities and how they prefer their teachers to teach them. Therefore, even with the knowledge of the subject matter, knowing the right way to convey it is still hard. The second one is expectation. Sometimes novice teachers, they put high expectation on themselves. For example, they expect like the whole class understand the whole lesson. However, when we are talking about, you know, in real life students in school setting, the students might disappoint you sometimes, and your own expectation will always disappoint you, because If you put it too high, then you will feel a very great loss. So what we can do when we are teaching later as novice teachers, we can have expectation, we should have expectation, but we should know where we stand. So do not put our expectation too high. Right, so as novice teachers, how do we learn to be competent? How do we be competent? Alright, so I think the most important thing here is motivation. We have to know our own motivation and how to keep it upright. And we need to stay positive all the time, even though it's hard, but we still need to improve ourselves, and we need to know that uh, it is not easy to be competent as well as efficacy. So we need to learn. We need to learn from the students. We need to learn from the experienced teachers, our seniors. And one day we might be achieving the level of competency that we expect ourselves to achieve. Okay? Right. The second point under novice teacher issues and challenges is relational issues. So the first point is the relationship between novice teachers and students. Right, so how the students view of novice teachers? As we know, the students, they love new teachers, especially when the teachers are pretty or handsome and when the teachers have good relationship with them. But if the novice teachers didn't put a thin line between themselves and the students will bully, the teachers, because they think that novice teachers are their friends, so they tend to not pay attention in class. And number two, how does the teacher's view of the students? Well, I believe that we have been through SOP before, School Orientation Plan, or ROS, Rancangan Orientasi Sekolah. And how do you view your students? I view my students as friends because I don't have to teach them, I just have to kelas ganti and all. So it is kind of hard. The relationship between the teachers and students are normally good, especially for novice teachers, because they're new and the students taught them as friends. However, there will be a little bit of difficulties when they are trying to teach, because these students, they don't want to pay attention in class, and especially because the teacher lack of experience and their ways of teaching are not good yet. Right. And the problems faced by novice teachers regarding the students. Well, number one, as I said before, being bullied. Number two, the students don't want to pay attention in class. And number three, the students, they tend to have their own way with the teachers. So what we can do later on, maybe we can, create a thin line between the teacher and the students. Well, of course, it is easier to teach them when they see you as their friends, but they still need to know that they are your students and you are the teacher. So it is your job to teach them and they need to respect you. Okay, next point. Okay, next one is the relationship between novice teachers and the colleagues. Meaning by colleagues here is other teachers, whether the same novice teachers and novice teachers, or novice teacher and senior teachers. So novice teachers need the support from the senior and experienced colleague, especially because they lack of experience, so they need to learn and watch from the seniors. And also there's a difference between pre-service workload and real life application. Well, I haven't been to the practicum yet, but I think because during the pre-service or practicum, there are a lot of stuff that the practicum teachers cannot do. The practicum teachers cannot bring the students to some events. They need to have some sort of letter, and then they can focus on their own reports for the at the end of the practicum they will need to produce a report. However, if you compare that to the real life application, teachers have a lot of other workloads to do. They need to prepare for events, they need to teach, and there are a lot of paperwork to do. Therefore, the workload between pre-service and the real life one is huge. Hence, novice teachers, they need to know this, and they need to expect different and huge workloads when they are going to school later. And then there's the expectations from the senior colleagues and the expectation of the novice teachers themselves. So, some of these senior colleagues, they expect that the novice teachers know how to do works, but some novice teachers, they don't know how to do work. They still need to learn, and they need a lot of support from these colleagues. So the expectations, as always, it will kill. So when the senior teachers, they expect the novice teachers to do the work successfully, there will be some kind of misunderstanding, especially when the novice teacher don't know how to do it. And the novice teacher, because we expect the senior teachers to teach us how to do work and get a lot of support from them, because they have the experience and we don't. So when these kind of misunderstanding happen, it will destroy the relationship between the novice teachers and the other colleagues. So what we can do is communicate with our colleagues, whether it's the seniors or the other novice teachers, because communication is key. The last one is the relationship between the novice teacher and the parents. So right now, for the pandemic, there are a lot of issues going on between the parents and the teachers, not necessarily novice, but teachers. So parents have problems, especially with the novice teachers. They expect the novice teachers have a lot of experience like the experienced teachers, but obviously it's a novice, so we still have a lot to learn. Therefore, they have high expectation of the novice teachers, which sometimes can disappoint them and as well as the teachers. Number two, the parents' expectation of their children, which is the students. Students sometimes they act very good, like an angel in front of their parents, but they're not so much of an angel in school. So sometimes when the teacher tell the parents that the students make some problems in school, teachers the parents tend to blame the teachers because they do not believe in them. So this kind of miscommunication happen a lot in school, and especially with novice teachers, because they still don't have the experience to deal with these kind of parents. So yes, it's huge. And number three, misunderstanding can happen if there is no communication. So novice teachers, even though they are novice, sometimes they receive the position of classroom teachers. Therefore, they need to communicate with the parents. They need to tell the parents what the children or the students receive, like whether the students get good marks, or report to the parents. So if there is no communication between the novice teacher and the parents, it will destroy the relationship and make huge misunderstanding happen. So it sounds easy, but communication is not really easy. It is hard, because if it's easy, then everyone can do it, but it's not, right? So what I can say is that be ready and learn to communicate better. We move on to the next point by Azrul Afid.
Hello everyone, you are now listening to Azrul again. Okay, now let's move on to the next issue, which is professional issues. The first one is student diversity. What is student diversity? It is defined as a diverse community of students, simply implies to understand that all people are special in their own way. Their differences might consist of their level of reading, level of proficiency, personality, religious view, and the list goes on. So what might be an issue with the student diversity for a novice teacher? So I have been read a few websites, and one thing that I can highlight from my finding is the instructional difficulty. So refer to the slide. Some novice teachers might be facing with difficulty in planning or commanding instruction based on the student's proficiency level and learning preferences like visual, kinesthetic, or auditory. So if you understand this, let's imagine yourself as a novice teacher. Imagine that you are teaching in a classroom consists of more than 30 students. Obviously, they are all have different proficiency level in English and the differences in learning preferences. And as a novice teacher, you might get flustered when you were about to start the classroom activity and you give them instruction like you are sure you are clear of your instruction, but then a student asks you to repeat the instruction more than once. So when this situation happened, the student need to wait for that one student to comprehend the instruction clearly, and the teaching and learning flow might get delayed. And if that happens, as a result, the period might be insufficient to complete the classroom activity, the teaching, and your teaching objective might not achieve for that day. Do you understand? If you understand, let's move on to the second point. The next point is students' cultural background. What is students' cultural background? It is defined as the context of students' life experience as shaped by membership in groups based on ethnicity, race, socioeconomic status, gender, language, religion, and geographical area. So, as a teacher, learning about where your students come from will ease your job. For example, in Malaysia, we have our own cultures and unique lifestyles, right? So during your teaching and learning process, as a teacher, you need to relate the lesson with something that is familiar to our student within our country context. Because if you have Western or European culture as an example in your lesson, the students might not able to comprehend what you're trying to deliver, and because they can't relate to it. So that is why there is possibility when you have that kind of example, the Western and European culture as your example, as a novice teacher, you might unconsciously disregarding or disrespecting students' cultural background. Do you get what I mean? And also, as a novice teacher, it might be challenging to plan a lesson that can be comprehended by all students despite their differences, because of their differences of cultural background. Because like I said before, it is better to know where students come from, because as a teacher we need to cater to all of our students' needs and we need to know their preferences, like my previous point. Okay, now let's move on to the next point, the last one under professional issue. Students' participation. It means students' engagement during class discussion, during online discussion, and students' behavior in group settings. So what might be an issue to a novice teacher with students' participation? It is creating engaging learning environment. I think this situation happened not only to a novice teacher but also to an experienced teacher. You know, when you're teaching and you need your students to respond to your lesson, because you need to figure out whether they are being active or they are passive during your lesson. So if this situation happened to a novice teacher, when they are teaching, there's no students respond to their questions when prompted, they might get overthinking that their teaching or their way of teaching were not effective enough, or the students might find their class boring. And it is more challenging to come up with a better lesson plan to include and create an engaging learning environment. So that's the hard part for a novice teacher, because you need to think like an idea to be a teacher with an interesting class and to get your student to respond to your questions and engage in any activities you conducted during your class. I think that's all for professional issues, and now we're going to the last issues for this topic, which is social status and identity. Let's go. This is the last issue for this topic, social status and identity issue. The first one is employees' right. The definition for employees' right is the right that an employee has to be treated in a fair, morally acceptable, or legal way. Some example of employees' right for teacher as an educator is teacher freedom of expression, teacher freedom from discrimination, teachers' privacy rights, and etc. So I think some of us, or maybe majority of us, are familiar with this. You know, back when we were a high school student, whenever a practicum or a new teacher start their teaching career in our school, they're usually occupied with tons of word loads, excessive word loads, despite being a new teacher. They're being assigned with so much works other than teaching their respective subjects. Let's take an English and a new English teacher, for example. They are being assigned to handle any English programs in that school, English course speaking team, anything that is related to English in that school. The same goes when replacing teacher who were on leave. It is always a new teacher to be assigned for that. The most of the times always a new teacher for that case. So this is becoming an issue among novice teacher, because in some school, teacher in higher up position, they take this novice teacher for granted, as if they are only teaching one class for a day. Do you agree with me? I think this is a very serious issue. Even for us, in the future, we might involve in this kind of issue, right? Okay, now let's move on to the next point. The next point is fear of judgment. Fear of judgment can be defined as a reflection of our own insecurities. We tend to judge other people based on what we think is acceptable or embarrassing, so we judge ourselves by the same criteria. So in this case of a novice teacher, what kind of issue that triggered their fear of judgment? So what I found is the identity insecurities as a new teacher. So as a new teacher, this novice teacher might think that the school community are judging them as a new teacher. For example, like students might find their first class with this new teacher is awkward, or they're not able to comprehend the first lesson because this teacher is still new and they need time to get familiar with his or her style of teaching. So also to add on that, these novice teachers, they might also afraid of getting hit if they are being vocal about the school related issues, like when they find something weird or they are uncomfortable with any kind of systems that run in that school. They want to fix that by being vocal about that, but they hold their intention because they might get criticized. I have like my personal experience. I don't know about you guys, but personally I have experienced this during the Rose subject in our second or third semester. I don't remember, when we were assigned to observe teaching in a school. I think you still remember that. I have been friend with 2 or 3 new teacher during my Rose subject in my school, and they were talking about how students reacted during their first teaching experience. They were like, they're afraid that the students might find their class boring and the student might talk behind them, and also they talk about how they want to fix like a system or maybe an activities that they find uncomfortable, but they refuse or hold their intention, like I said before, because they are still new and might get criticized for being rude. So as you can see, being a new teacher is not as easy as we think, because there are so many things to be careful about just to make sure that we will survive in this field for a long time. I think let's move to the next point, the last point and the last one for this topic. Last point is teaching persona. What is teaching persona? It is the version of yourself that you present to students, and it is also like a key element or main element to building a rapport or to bond with your students. It can be helpful to give some thought to the person you are in the classroom, and whether there are some aspect of your image you want to improve or to forge better connections with your students. So the issue for the teaching persona is lacking persona in front of students. So novice teacher might find they are not able to figure out a perfect image to be presented in front of their student. So this is an issue for them, because as a new teacher, it's all about first impression. As a new teacher, like I said, and you are assigned to a new place, first impression does matter. If you're giving a clueless, let's say this is an example, if you are giving a clueless look during your first class, students might take you for granted and easy target. But if you're presenting a street image on your first meet, they might be too scared to approach you another time. So it's kind of become complicated and a struggle moment for new novice teacher to find an image that is balanced enough to fit with the students' preferences. So when this kind of situation happened, as a novice teacher, you might fall into a situation called inconsistency of teaching persona, because when this happen, when you are inconsistently have an inconsistent image in front of your student, it might give an impact to your teaching persona in the future. For example, if you started as a soft-spoken teacher, but like suddenly you change your teaching persona to a very strict commander teacher, and the student will not be able to follow your changes, because it will affect the teaching and learning flow as well. You get what I mean? And that is the last point and the last one for our topic today. I think that's all from me, Azrul, and my friends Amira. Now we are going to a new topic with new presenters. Let's go.
Okay, so we have finally come to the final part of our presentation, which is the school management issues. So on this topic, we will discuss on what is school management. So school management refers to the administration of the education system and a process of leading the school towards development to all the sources to help achieve objectives of the school. So what is school management? So what falls under school management? So school management starts from the Ministry of Education, and then under that we have the curriculum, the teacher, the parent, and students. Therefore, we will be discussing on how this subtopic relate back and how they contribute to the issues under the school management and recommendation, and what we suggest that can help solve these issues. So let's get on with it. Okay, so essentially we will look at why school management is important. So why is it so important in the education system? Now, the thing is about school management, without a proficient management system, the school will fail to achieve its objective and mission and vision. So this technically also means that behind every successful schools, there is an efficient school management system behind it. So the school management system must ensure that the curriculum that they use must be aligned with the Malaysian education blueprint and the national education philosophy. And other than that, school management also take care of their teachers and staff and caters to the teachers and staff welfare, and they also caters to the students' welfare and academic affairs, and even parents, school parents relationship, and how they can help each other to ensure that the school are giving their best to cater their child and their student needs. Now that you understand why the school management is important, now we will look at the issues relating to the school management and see what we can do to overcome these issues. Let's go.
Assalamualaikum and a very good day I bid to everyone. My name is Adriana and I will be continuing this presentation. Alright, so one of the things that a teacher must go through in their career as a way to help with their professional development is by going through a program called Latihan Dalam Perkhidmatan, or LADAP for short. This program usually takes about 7 days a year. It does not matter if it is done in one shot or separately, as long as it is 7 days a year and 6 hours per day. So, this program is basically to ensure that a teacher is well equipped with knowledge in matters of curriculum, co-curriculum, and other aspects as well, so they will be an all-rounded teacher. Activities in this program may include teamwork, strengthening activities, news on awareness, ICT, and other activities that could be beneficial for them in the future. So, why do teachers need to polish their professional development? This is because teachers are faced with different problems and issues every day that may need them to be fully prepared with different skills. Some of these issues can be firstly about diversity, as I have listed here. Since Malaysia is a diverse country, teachers must be mindful and inclusive of other cultures as well. So it is important for a teacher to think thoroughly about this and develop a good lesson plan that would help in educating others about other cultures as well. So the second point is overwork. Some teachers feel that they are overworked, and that could cause massive amount of stress. In an interview held by graduan.com, a teacher actually said that they are expected to do other work not related to teaching, for example, event management for sports day, keeping track of student attendance, and keying in online sports and curriculum marks. So this results in teachers not being fully present in the classroom. So the third one is sudden change. Since everything is growing so rapidly and technology is taking over educational matters, teachers need to adapt to this sudden change very quickly because they need to teach their students about this sudden change as well. So for example, we are going through a global pandemic right now, right? So teachers must adapt to technology as quickly as they can so they are able to continue teaching from home. This may be difficult for some of them as some of the teachers are old and are not familiar with technology. The article in this slide was actually explained in the previous slide under the point of teachers being overworked. This article was written by graduan.my, where they interviewed a teacher named Cikgu Natra, and here she explains about how the teachers in Malaysia are expected to be angels, basically working on other tasks other than teaching. I will provide the link to this article so that everyone can take a look on the full interview. Alright, so we're moving on to the next slide. A parent's role in the management of a school. Do parents have a meaningful role to ensure a positive growth in a school? The answer is yes, of course they do. Parents have their own association called Persatuan Ibu Bapa dan Penjaga, PIBG, or in English, Parent Teacher Association, PTA. This is very helpful to schools because parents will be able to help by contributing ideas, time, and funding for the betterment of the school. So, a general meeting is held once a year by the parents, while the principals, other teachers, along with other parents, decide on who to appoint for the Parent Teacher Association board. So, this will make things easier because there will be people in charge in order to ensure a good flow in management. So, what are the issues that are commonly faced by these parents? First of all, forced funding. Some parents feel as if they are forced to pay for certain things in the name of contributing to the school. The second one is biasness. Some parents are unable to separate personal business and also professional business, meaning that they want to contribute to the school, but they think of their children first, what benefits their children instead of benefiting the school as a whole. So the third issue is time. So I think this is quite obvious because these parents, they all have different jobs, so they have clashing schedules. So in order for them to hold meetings weekly or a monthly, it would be a slight problem for everyone to attend because people have their own personal things to do, personal jobs to attend. In this slide, we have an article by GPS Bestari that shows how parents feel that they are forced to fund the schools to the point that they report this issue to the higher authority. The link to this article will also be provided if anyone is interested to read it. Problems that arise between parents and teachers are often caused by one thing, and that one thing is communication gap. So, what is communication gap, you might ask? So, communication gap is the meaning intended by the speaker or sender is not what is understood by the recipient. So basically, whatever speaker A says might be translated wrongly by speaker B. This is caused by a lack of understanding and comprehension. So, for example, a mother tells the Parent-Teacher Association that she can only attend the meeting if it is held once a month. But what the teacher understands is that they are lazy to attend and involve themselves in these programs, that they only want it to be once a month instead of weekly. So that there is a communication gap there, meaning that the teacher does not understand that the parent has other things to do, and not because they are avoiding this program. It is because they have other responsibilities.
Hello, and I'm back again. My name is Zawin, and I'm going to talk about the students' affair and how it affects the school management issues, and how it relates, how it can brings issues to the school management. So basically, school management will handle the students' affair, and this includes on their well-being, their welfare, their academic, the curriculum. And today I will specifically talk about the issues of the students' attitude, teacher-students relationship, and implementation of curriculum. Now, how does all of these issues relating to each other is that when it comes to students' attitude, school basically plays a big role in handling students' attitude. So when it comes to attitude problems such as, for example, attendance record, their academic record, and if these and if there seems to be a problem, the school management must see what are the things that are causing these problems. So if it's regarding attendance record, the school must know if there is something going on with their household, or is there something that is preventing them from going to school, or is there anything that they are doing behind their parents' back or the school's back, or whether they decided to skip schools. So these are the things that the management must take in hand, and this includes the academic problem as well. And when it comes to the academic problem, they must know, the school management or the school authority must know what are causing these academic performance to drop, or if there is any problem with the curriculum implemented, so that they can provide with a better teaching style and a better learning method for the students to learn. So another thing that can also help in managing the students' affair is peer helpers, or as we call it, pembimbing rakan sebaya, and also PIBG, which is a parent-teacher association where parents and teacher works together to see what good things they can bring to school to help and cater their students' and child's need. And more elaboration on the recommendation on how to solve these issues will be talked about in another slides. But basically, if the school management fails to cater to the students' affair, it definitely will bring the whole system down, and it definitely causes an unsystematic management, and definitely fails to align with the objectives of the school. Therefore, students' affairs are definitely one of the issues that the school management has.
Assalamualaikum everyone, I'm Amanda and I will be presenting on my part. When it comes to educational institution, you can never run away from two things, which are curriculum and co-curricular. Curriculum can be defined as lessons and academic content taught in a school or in a specific course or program. It consists of compulsory subjects that students have to take in order to graduate or finish school. It also consists of learning objective and learning standards. Other than that, it requires tests and assessments in order to test students' knowledge. As for co-curricular, it can be defined as programs that complement what students have learned in school, and these programs are not compulsory for students to join. It has its own scheduled time, usually after school hours, and it may be operated by outside organizations, meaning that the schools themselves may not be the organizers. Some examples of co-curricular activities would be musical performances, mock trials, and debate competitions. Implementing curriculum can be very challenging, and one of the most common issues would be the fact that curriculum is continuously being reformed, and even though this reformation is done in the name of improvement, it has actually caused confusion to educators due to the implementation of new learning standards, especially the ones that educators are not familiar with. As we all know, KBSM has been changed to KSSM, and this caused the syllabus to change as well. The next issue would be virtual learning. So the syllabus that has been planned and implemented now actually involves learning in a real classroom, not virtually. However, nobody expected that the world would be hit by a pandemic, and this pandemic has caused teaching and learning session to be done in front of the screen instead of face-to-face, and this has caused the implementation of curriculum to be affected greatly. The next issue is very much related to the second issue, and it is the incorporation of technology. Now that virtual learning is the number one method when it comes to teaching and learning session, the usage of technology is very important. However, in our country, there is an apparent disparity when it comes to the level of technological development. This means that students in rural areas have very limited access to needed technology, and this caused unequal opportunity among students to gain knowledge. So in this slide, we're going back to the first issue of curriculum, which is the Reformation. This screenshot shows a letter that was sent to the Star, written by a worried mother who expressed her concern over the reformation of our educational curriculum. The mother wrote about how the teachers are having a hard time, and as well as her own students are struggling trying to familiarize themselves with the new curriculum implementation. This shows that this struggle and the problem is happening, and it is very real. Now let's move on to the issues faced when implementing co-curricular. The implementation of co-curricular can cause teachers to experience burnout. This is because teachers are usually already overworked, and without even having to handle the different types of co-curricular activities and events, they already have a lot of things on their plate. And having to handle so many things at once can be harmful to their mental and emotional health. The next issue would be teachers turning a blind eye towards the importance of co-curricular, as opposed to the teachers who are very passionate when it comes to co-curricular activities. These kind of teachers have the perception that co-curricular activities hold no significance. With this kind of thinking, this means that they don't think that co-curricular is as important as the main curriculum. Therefore, they do not prioritize co-curricular activities. The next issue would be the lack of funding. As we all know, before schools have the green light to organize any sort of events, they need to be approved of the needed amount of money, which means that the less the amount of money approved, the less activities can be done.
And we finally come to the final part of our presentation today, which is the recommendation. So in this particular slide, we will talk about what we can recommend to overcome these school management issues.
For these issues, we might not be able to fix them all overnight, but there are recommendations that parents and teachers can use to help them overcome these issues. So let's focus on the teachers' issues first. The first issue is on diversity. So the problem here is Malaysia is made out of different cultures and different backgrounds. So finding teaching materials with all these cultures put together might not be an easy task. But what the teacher can do is they can read up materials from different places, and these materials combined can be made into one material which will be used in the lessons. This will be beneficial not only for the students but for the teacher as well, as they themselves can acquire more knowledge on different cultures while researching for the materials to be used in class. The next issue is being overworked. There is no other way to solve this issue than to communicate with those in charge. When good communication is involved, those in charge will understand this problem and help with whatever they can regarding this issue. The third issue is sudden change. So, a way to overcome this issue is by having thorough planning on what to do. Everything must be explained thoroughly and in details so every side can understand what is going on and can be in sync. Next, we will move on to the parent. So the first issue is forced funding. How do we overcome this issue? We must discuss with the school. There must be a reason why the school is asking for the funding, and If the parents still think that it is unnecessary for the school to be asking for that amount of money, discussions should be held in order to avoid further misunderstandings and to have an agreement from both sides. So the next issue would be biasness. This would be on the parents themselves. They need to learn how to be professional. They need to understand that the Parent-Teacher Association is not just dedicated to their child, but also to other child's well-being. So the third issue is of time. This once again needs to be solved with good communication. These parents must have an agreement between them to make sure that the outcome of the Parent-Teacher Association brings out a positive impact to everyone. So they all must be there and they all must sacrifice time to provide the best for their children. Next is the recommendation on how to solve the problem of communication gap between parents and teachers. So, the first point would be parents have to understand boundaries. We understand that parents want the best for their children, yes, but there are certain times that teachers must be in charge, since teachers are the parents of the school. So parents should help, but at certain times, they must trust the teacher and they must trust why the teacher decides to do this and that. So understanding boundaries is very crucial in this. Next, we have to choose a suitable platform so every parent can participate. Not everyone has access to a smartphone, even though that social media is the easiest way for everyone to connect with each other. Not everyone has access to internet, to a smartphone. So parents and teachers have to take note on who and who is absent from social media so they can contact and tell the information to them personally by a phone call or a text message. Other than that, they have to discuss among themselves which social media is the most suitable for them to hold discussions and make announcements. Last but not least is the parents and the teachers, both need to try to understand each other's decisions and find a common ground. To listen to each other is needed, but comprehension is much more important. So teachers and parents need to understand each other, comprehend each other's decisions so that both parties would be satisfied.
For recommendations regarding students' affair, there are two type of recommendations that I have proposed, which is the peer helpers, which is the PRS, Pembimbing Rakan Sebaya, and counseling programs. Now, what PRS and peer helpers can do is that schools should implement a safe place for students to reach out in terms of their personal problems, because attitudes comes from many places, and one of those places comes from home. So if home is not a safe place for them to reach out in terms of their personal problems, for example, to reach out to parents, school can be that safe environment for them, and PRS or peer helpers can help these students regarding their attitude problem. On the other hand, counseling programs. Now, what counseling programs can do is they provide instruction on psychological and social issues. Again, these can fix up many of the problems in the students' affairs, such as the attitude problem, the academic problem, and perhaps repairing teacher and students' relationship. It also gives a vocational guidance, for example, for those students who are graduating high school and want to know where they should go after high school. And they also, counseling programs also provide special needs service. So these counseling programs can definitely cater to most of the student affairs problems. Now, the article that I am about to show here is some of the articles regarding how mental health mostly comes from their own household, and how most teenagers now are affected with mental health, and it is definitely an issue that we all should not turn over an eye on. So regarding this, and how is it related to school management issues? Well, basically, the management system can definitely helps. Like I said, PIBG, PRS can definitely take action we if we can see any students who are apparently going through something. So this can definitely help those students in need. Okay, so that is all for my recommendation regarding students affair. Thank you.
So now that we're done with the issues of implementing curriculum and co-curricular activities, we are going to move on to the recommendations of qualities towards achieving professionalism in handling the issues that we have just discussed. The first issue, which is reformation, can be handled by possessing adaptability. As we all know, our educational system is always changing, and the curriculum is constantly being reformed in order to make room for improvements. To stand at par with other countries when it comes to educational system, improvement is very much needed, and it can be done through reformation. There is no doubt that trying to comprehend the new structure would be challenging for educators, especially senior teachers, but it is important that adaptability is performed. This is because good teachers are those who are able to shift their methods of teaching given the circumstances. They are able to change their ways depending on the situations and not only stick to one method. The next issue, which is virtual learning, can be handled by practicing integrity. Handling virtual classes is completely different from teaching in a real classroom in so many ways. This has caused a lot of teachers to feel uncomfortable, especially when they are not used to handling technology. In some cases, when this happens, teachers tend to let go of their responsibility and do not conduct any online class, even if it's just through WhatsApp group. Professionals practice the act of integrity. Therefore, teachers who should be professionals should not completely abandon their students, even if their classes are only conducted through simple text and messages. The last issue regarding curriculum is the incorporation of technology. Since not everyone has the opportunity to gain access to the very much needed technology in order to attend online classes, teachers should be more empathetic and understanding, because being demanding is not the only way to become professional. Teachers have to be understanding and make sure that the task given will not make the less fortunate students to be excluded. This will greatly affect the students' motivation to learn, despite the shortcomings that they have to face. Let's move on to ways in handling issues regarding co-curricular. The first issue, which is burnout, can be handled by managing time effectively. As we are all aware, time is of the essence. Professionalism can be greatly developed when time is managed properly and accordingly. There is no doubt that co-curricular can add to the amount of stress that teachers are already experiencing, but with the right method of organization, this effect can be minimized. Making timetables and planning ahead are two of the many ways teachers can organize their working time without putting too much pressure on themselves. Juggling too many things at the same time can be challenging, and this is why, besides managing time effectively, teachers should also be cooperative in order to lessen their burden. Things that are done under pressure seldom turn out great, and if teachers do care about the outcome, they should work together shoulder to shoulder. The next issues involve teachers turning a blind eye towards co-curricular. This can be handled if conscientiousness is practiced. Students often look at their teachers as their role model, and whatever the teachers respect, the students will show the same attitude towards it as well. This being said, if teachers themselves do not see co-curricular as holding any significance, how can their students feel any differently towards it? And even though co-curricular may not be compulsory, it actually does help to build and improve oneself. Therefore, teachers should be more aware about the significance that co-curricular has. The last issue of implementing co-curricular, which is lack of funding, can be handled by being innovative and creative. Money is important in order to fund the resources needed to make sure that the events planned is organized well and accordingly. However, most of the times, teachers have to break their piggy banks instead. And this is where innovation and critical thinking play their parts. Even if money is a problem, great events can still be organized if thinking caps are put on, because professionals always challenge themselves in whatever they do.